Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In Business Trust Talks, and Better Business Bureau's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better idea of what to look out for and what to expect so you can spend your money wisely and avoid being scammed. And today's topic is really an important one, especially for older adults and those taking care of them. With us today is Pamela Brown. She's the Director of Investigations for the Department of Consumer Protection here in Connecticut. She's going to share valuable information and insights into what we should be looking for when hiring a homemaker companion. And she's also going to highlight some guidelines, some very important guidelines regarding these companions and what they can and cannot do, and what to watch out for when it comes to their advertising of certain services. So Pam, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's start with DCP's role in all of this. When it comes to policing home companion agencies, what does the Department of Consumer Protection do?
So that's twofold. We have our licensing side of the house and also our investigation side of the house, which is where I am the director. So first off, a homemaker companion agency must apply for a credential. So they pay the fee, they submit their application, the licensing division checks everything out, makes sure the background checks are done of the owners, that they give us the information as to where that business is located, because we're going to be interested in that location when it comes time for us to audit that business. And then also they must have the required surety bond or insurance. On the investigation side, we audit the businesses to ensure that their contracts, terms and conditions are in compliance with the law, and also that their employees are undergoing the required background checks.
And we're going to talk about what should be in that contract a little later on. Why would someone choose a homemaker companion versus, say, assisted living or nursing home or even just a home health care aide? What is the difference?
Sure. So that's a personal decision. People might want to stay in their home, to be in their familiar environment, around family, and then their familiar things. We found that during the pandemic, most people were avoiding the nursing homes and the assisted living because of the congregate living to get away from the pandemic and the exposure of COVID.
That makes sense. So give me some examples of some of the tasks a companion could complete for their client.
Okay. So there are under homemaker companion, there are two distinct roles. So you have the companions, which can go to the home. They are there usually for a shorter period of time than a homemaker. A companion will go in, have talks, play board games, drive someone around, make a light meal. They're basically there to entertain, if you will, and keep the client company and make sure that they're safe. Where a homemaker is going to clean the house, do laundry, change the bedding, dust, whatever those tasks might be, grocery shopping, meal preparation. So
Okay. Now, I mentioned at the beginning this is an important topic for older adults, but there could be situations where a younger person might need this help as well.
Oh, absolutely. So we found that maybe there's someone who has a disability, they're wheelchair bound and they're younger. Maybe they have a birth defect and they're now on their own, or they've been exposed to some kind of trauma as a result of an automobile accident. So they need assistance in their home doing, laundry, those same things, just meal preparation, things that they can't perform. And that just might be a shorter period of time rather than someone who's elderly who will need someone full time. So just maybe during a period of healing and rehabilitation.
But in either case, they wouldn't necessarily be living in to the home, or is that possible? That
it is possible. So yes, homemakers are generally live-ins where companions are there to support the caregiver, or if someone needs to go to work for a few hours, they know someone's there during the day while they're gone. A live-in homemaker stays and they're working for about 10 hours a day because they do have to have breaks and they do have to sleep. They are there performing whatever task that is needed during that period of time, from the time that client wakes up to the time the client goes to bed.
So as our population ages, are you seeing this industry grow?
Absolutely, yes. When we started working on the homemaker companion agencies, I would say back in 2008, there were probably maybe 200 or 300. Now they are 1,500 agencies that are registered with us
In Connecticut?
in Connecticut.
Wow, that
Yes.
just shows the need, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. So this is a person we're letting into our homes, letting help take care or help our loved ones. How can we assure that they are someone we can trust?
Well, that is very important issues, the trust factor. The Homemaker Companion Agency should be conducting background checks on all of their employees. However, the background check is just as good as the day that it was done. So you want to make sure that you know who's coming into your home, ask for some references, make sure that the person coming, that the law requires that they have a name badge. So if it's Pamela Brown coming in, you know that that's who's going to be there. Also, if there's a substitute, they're supposed to let you know in advance. This is, Pamela can't be there today, so we're sending Mary. And so that you know who's coming into your home. But still, just as you would, you still want to make sure that you put away your checkbooks, or not to say that everyone in the industry might have, want to use or exploit someone financially, but just protect your items that you value.
There are bad seeds, bad actors in every industry, and sometimes they ruin it for the good guys, unfortunately.
Yes.
Anything else we should be considering when choosing and comparing and contrasting different agencies? Because like you said, there's 1,500 out there.
Yes. And so one is just to make sure that they're registered with the Department of Consumer Protection, because if not, that is illegal. They actually are conducting a criminal act. It is a misdemeanor in the state of Connecticut to operate or offer homemaker companion services without a registration. And then you're going to want to check to see if there are any complaints with us. And so, pick up the phone, you send us an email. We're happy to check that out. We have staff that's there available at all times. We actually have a chat as well. So if there's someone's more savvy on the computer, they can do that. And then you want to talk about cost. What do you need and what do you expect for the services that are going to be provided in your home? So do you need just a companion? Just shop around and see if those prices are what you can afford to pay. And then some agencies require minimum hours. So even though you might need someone for just 2 hours, they may say, we need to send someone for 4 hours, because they want to make sure that their staff is getting 4 hours worth of pay. So that it's worth their while to come into your home.
Interesting. An important point that I know you want to get across today is that homemaker companion agencies cannot provide medical services. Can you give me some examples of the types of services they cannot legally provide?
Sure. So wound care, maybe we'll say diabetic glucose monitoring. So that's requires someone to do testing of someone's glucose at that moment in time and decide what kind of insulin or how much insulin they might need. So those types of tasks they cannot perform.
What about medicine?
Medicine, yes, absolutely. They can only do medication reminders. So they cannot sort or dispense medication.
Okay. So there are agencies, though, that do those things. They do provide medical care, correct?
Correct, yes.
If we're looking for that type of agency, what should we be searching for?
Okay, so that would be a home health agency, home health care agency, and they are regulated by the Department of Public Health, not DCP. Though we do work sometimes in tandem on cases that bring us both to the table on a particular case. But they are generally managed and supervised by a nurse or a doctor, a medical doctor, and people usually get to that the home health care agency by way of a prescription from their doctor. So they might need a nurse, they might need physical therapist or an occupational therapist, and a home health aide who helps with showering and bathing and dressing, but that's all under the home health care umbrella.
Okay, so what if a homemaker companion is working in a home and they notice that this person, their client, needs a different level of service or medical assistance? What do they do at that point? Do they report it to the family, to the company they work for? What happens?
Well, hopefully it is with both. That's probably going to be based on the homemaker and companion's policy. Hopefully with an emergency, they know to dial 911 and then contact their supervisor or the business and whatever the protocols people in the office have to do, maybe reaching out to the family. But I guess that would be determined by a plan that's put into place by the client and the homemaker companion. But yes, if it's someone who is deteriorating, they should not be there under the care of a homemaker companion agency, medical home health agency, 911, doctor, whatever the situation might be.
Okay. Earlier, I asked you to compare home companion agencies, what we should be looking for. Because there are so many guidelines for this industry, are they all pretty much the same? Is it just a matter of finding one that you have a good vibe with, or are there a lot of differances out there?
Between the two homemaker?
No, just between the 1,500
Okay.
homemaker companion agencies that are out there.
Yes, I think you want to make sure that you choose the right homemaker or companion for you. So someone may be sent to your home and maybe you don't, like you said, vibe, that they don't get along with you. They're not maybe able to perform that task of cooking, because we do get that complaint where I've hired this homemaker and she's a terrible cook. There's also the registration model, and I should have mentioned that earlier. So with the homemaker companion agency, there's a employee model where they are sending people to your home, or there is a registry model where they have a list of homemakers or companions that you can choose from, and then you pay them directly. So there's two models in that industry.
Oh, interesting. You mentioned the agencies have to be licensed.
Yes.
Registered as well with the state?
It is actually a registration, not a license.
Okay. And where can that information be found?
Right on our website, which is ct.gov/DCP, or you can just simply search online Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection. And on our landing page, on the top, it says verify a license. Even though it is a registration, it's just a catch-all.
Okay.
And you can also call in if you are not able to get on the computer, and we have staff there that will answer your questions.
And the business should also be advertising that on their website, I would think, as well. Here's our license, here's our information, right?
Yes, it is actually required on any advertisement, on their website, on TV ads. It is required to be there.
Okay. And they have to have insurance, I imagine, as well.
Yes. So the law requires that they have at minimum a surety bond and also insurance. It's or insurance. But we found that through our audits that most have both.
Okay, so we have a graphic. Let's go through some of the other requirements. These are listed on your website. So we talked about obtaining and maintaining a homemaker companion agency registration with the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection. Next is provide you with a written contract or service plan within 7 days of providing services. Tell me a little bit more about what people can expect.
Yes, so with the 7-day notice, it should contain the frequency, scope, and duration. So sometimes someone's getting discharged from a hospital or a nursing facility, and so that's why the 7 days is there, to give some time for everyone to figure out what needs are should be covered and how they're going to get that done. So frequency, how often are they going to come out to your home to provide that service if they are not a live-in? And then the scope, what exactly do you need them to perform? Is it meal preparation? Is it laundry, vacuuming? And then how often they're going to be doing that and for what period of time. So do you need someone just for a month or two, or do you need someone with an open-ended contract? That's what they should be covering in that 7-day contract.
The next is not provide a higher skilled individual at a higher price than needed. Is this an issue that you commonly see?
Absolutely. So the law does require that all homemaker companion agencies put a disclaimer and actually put something in writing and hand it to the client, which they have to sign off with, understanding that this is a non-medical service that they are receiving. Okay. So it's pretty clear.
Okay. Otherwise, it would obviously be more expensive to have someone with that medical background in your home. Conduct a comprehensive background check of a prospective employee. You kind of talked a little bit about that already. And then conduct in-person or video conference interviews with all prospective employees.
Yes. So it goes along with the background check. So in the earlier days, the industry was saturated with people who were either undocumented workers or were here on maybe a visitor's visa and they weren't allowed to work. And we found that some agencies were basically flying people in and sending them directly to the home. So no background check whatsoever. So this way we ensure that the agency at least has a sit down with that individual, whether it is in person. The law was in person, but during COVID, it was added that they can do a video conference and just get an interview and make sure that they ask the right questions and get enough information to do a quality background check.
And provide business records to DCP for inspection upon request. Is that like an audit?
That is an audit. So we conduct those on site at the business's office. Sometimes they're announced visits, sometimes they're unannounced. We also do that in conjunction with the complaint. We're going to sit down and we're going to look at their client files, go through the contracts, make sure all the terms and conditions should be there. And then we also look at the employee files to make sure that there is a proper background check in file.
And they also have to train their staff as mandated reporters to report any safety or health issues immediately. How is that training? Talk a little bit about that and what they're supposed to be doing, looking out for.
Yeah, so the training is kind of really broad at this time, and we're hoping to narrow that down. So if there's something that occurs, whether it's a financial exploitation, there's neglect, maybe the homemaker didn't show up or they left the person unsupervised, really the homemaker companion should be reporting themselves, if you think about it.
Right.
Or at least the agency should be contacting the protective services for the elderly and say, hey, this event occurred, so that it can be investigated. And also, if there's some kind of discipline that needs to take place of their staff, they can get that done.
Okay. You talked about holding a surety bond or insurance policy. And then the last one is maintain notes with each client's file that include observations, problems, complaints, plans of action, telephone contacts, reports of in-home visits by supervisors, and the findings of all investigations. That's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's needed, especially if someone is in the home 24/7, behind closed doors. We find that sometimes those things that we get concerned about happen. So having the records and making sure that the business is out and doing a drop-in on their staff is really important to make sure things are getting done, that the person is being fed, their needs are being met. So that's why those things are there.
Are a lot of the conversations not necessarily with the client, but with their family?
It depends on the individual. So if it's someone who has dementia, obviously they're going to have a family member or a representative handle those things. Maybe they're conserved and they're going to put something in place about what that person needs. They're allowed to stay in their home. It's just making sure that they're safe and that they're getting all of their daily activities met.
And I would think they would probably have maybe a higher level person, like a home health aide with them, right?
Well,
at that point?
They should. That's one of the challenges that we see with the advertising guidelines, excuse me, is that they'll say dementia care, Alzheimer's care. So people assume that they are trained, have special certifications to deal with this individual who might need a little bit more care. And that is not always the case. So we've had some bad situations that we've seen where there's wandering. And unfortunately, we had one woman who got out in the middle of winter in her nightgown, and she was found deceased in a snowbank. And that's why that we make sure that you can say, or what you can or cannot say, to make sure that the people who are hiring you understand what services you can provide.
So this interview has really been focused on the consumer, but what do you want businesses out there to know? What's your message to them?
Sure. So the businesses should follow the law. Any kind of guidelines that the statute issues, and of course that's by the legislators, and on regulations that are on our website. And that can go from the contracts, background checks, and then also respond to DCP if we reach out to you. So if you have a complaint, we give you an opportunity, the business an opportunity, 10 days to respond in writing to give us an idea of what actually occurred. And then if we show up on your doorstep and we're doing an audit, it's not there to, people get scared, like for the IRS. Oh no, we're there to actually do education and compliance. We want to make sure that the marketplace is safe and operating the way that it should.
Just like BBB.
Yes, that's right.
We talked a little bit about the contract earlier. You talked about scope and service. Anything else that consumers should be looking for in their contract, that any red flags or anything like that?
Mainly the pricing and any kinds of language that's non-compete clauses. Because some might say, if you hire my aide or my companion or my homemaker, then we're going to charge you a fee. Well, that is totally against the law. That's something of recent change, a legislative change, where you can hire your homemaker or companion. You want to make sure that that's a good idea, because then you have to actually, as a employer now, you're in an employer role, you're responsible for taxes and workers' comp and things like that. So just cooperation, make sure you're keeping that registration in place and active.
So you're hiring them away from the business to be your personal home care companion.
Right. but then you also become their employer at that point. So most people don't realize that you're now responsible for things like taxes and such. I mean, handing out that W-2.
Oh, wow, wow. And any red flags we should be looking for on websites of these agencies? I think practically all of them probably have websites. So what should we be looking for on those websites?
Yes, they are required to have websites. So make sure the registration numbers are there, and so that you can look up what it is that they're offering, and making sure they're registered with DCP. Making sure they're not offering any medical services, because this is an industry that is non-medical. And so we do see some things that may be on the website that imply medical services. You might see people do show up in scrubs, or a white coat. Those little subtle things that may lead people to believe that they're going to get a higher level of service.
So it might not be the verbiage on there, but the pictures.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. What are some of the most common complaints that DCP gets about this industry?
So it could be anything from what is called quality of care, all the way to, unfortunately, fatalities. So, like I mentioned before, that someone may complain that this person is a horrible cook and they shouldn't be making my meals, all the way to that medical side where someone decides, well, this person has a wound and I'm going to, go to CVS or some store and get some ointment. And unfortunately, we've seen where that has resulted in someone's passing. And also physical abuse, things of that nature. So we get a wide range of complaints.
Theft as well.
Theft, yes. People helping themselves to checkbooks. Overcharging, making a double payment. So maybe their family member is writing that check monthly to that agency, but that homemaker or companion is saying, hey, you need to pay me. And so the person in the home is actually writing a check and handing it to that person on Fridays, what they believe is their payday. So, everything needs to be monitored. And if there's a family member or a client representative, they should be talking and communicating with the client themselves.
I was just going to say, do you implore families to try to be in communication with their loved one and know what's happening and know what's going on to prevent some of these issues?
That's a difficult for DCP. We don't really regulate that. Most of the time that we're hearing from a family member is when something has occurred. Mm-hmm. But it's really important, just from a personal perspective, that family members be engaged, be involved with the care of their person, especially if they have a memory challenge there, and to make sure that they're safe, make sure that their environment is safe, make sure that the tasks are being performed, because oftentimes when we hear about it, it's like, oh, the laundry was stacked up to the ceiling, or we've sent all of these, home grocery deliveries, and my loved one is now like 70 pounds less. So you really not just be the check writer, but get involved. And if they're not in the same state, perhaps have a neighbor check in. Just a random pop-up would be the best way to go.
You've shared several cautionary tales. How can these issues be prevented, besides having the neighbor or the family member be active in their lives?
I think, number one, having the family member or someone who can advocate for that individual who is a client of these agencies, but also supervision from the homemaker companion agencies themselves to check in on their staff. I mean, maybe there could be a situation where they're overwhelmed. It's really challenging to take care of someone who might have a memory issue, making sure that their employees are okay and that, they don't get overwhelmed in taking care of someone, and that might stop them from doing what they should do and avoiding the task with that individual.
At BBB, we always tell people to do your research.
Absolutely.
How important is that? Is, looking at the website, talking to these different agencies, interviewing them. Maybe can they come out to the house? Can you have a conversation with your loved one, with the agency and yourself? Maybe as part of the interview process? Is that common?
With you mean with the family members?
Yeah,
when at
so
the hiring?
your parent or loved one and the person you're considering hiring, and have like a conversation and see like how you get along with them, just like you would maybe hiring a nanny.
Absolutely, and I think that is the best way to go at the time of inception of the contract. Sit down, everybody's getting on the same page. This is what we need, how often we need it, and also making sure the personalities match, because your mom or dad, what they're like, and maybe they need someone with a little bit more patience or someone to give them a little bit more direction, just making sure that match. And maybe sit there for a day or two and monitor and make sure things are the way that they should be before you just set them off on their own to be together.
Is there an out if the person decides they can't get along? Can they get someone else from the same agency? Is that a request that they can make?
Yes, we do see that often, especially when we receive a complaint from DCP's perspective. But yes, most agencies says if you're not happy with this one person, we have others, and give us a call, and hopefully they'll place someone in there.
That's acceptable. Yeah. Okay. I think I've asked you all the questions I have. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to make sure, whether from the consumer side or the business side, that you want to make sure to get out there today?
No, I think we covered everything. Just really emphasize the fact of making sure that people contact consumer protection, making sure that registration is there, and see if there are any complaints.
Pamela Brown, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your insight, and I think it's going to help a lot of families out there.
Thank you.
So thank you. That's Pamela Brown. She is the Director of Investigations for the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection. And we thank you for joining us for this important conversation, and we'll see you next time for Trust Talks.
Nick Augustino right here at the East Side Restaurant. We always have the complete full dinner menu. Knockwurst, bratwurst, sauerbraten, potato pancakes, red cabbage, rice pudding, cream pies, all the desserts that Germany had to offer. I always do something different. Yes, I do. I brought seafood to the beer garden at the East Side Restaurant. East Side Restaurant, your German destination restaurant in Connecticut. Tiki-taka, hoy, hoy, hoy!